What will you regret more? Or what will you perhaps feel worse 10 years from now? Okay, never trying the things that makes you feel alive, or just giving up your financial security and ending up burned out. Or just waking up every morning with a paycheck, maybe, let me say so, but feeling hollow inside. Or just waking up excited but worried about maybe rent. Yes, that tension, heart versus roof, spark versus steady ground. This is the career dilemma I want to unpack today. And welcome back once again to A Talk with Brian. Let's have kind of a conversation about the forces pulling people towards passion and stability. Yes, I do understand passion as that heat or maybe work that lights something up inside. The work that feels meaningful or perhaps exciting in a way other tasks don't. And I do understand stability as that cool thing, that steady income, the predictable hours, benefits, and a sense that tomorrow will just look like today. Those two are often treated like enemies, but in real sense, they're just ways of answering the same question, So, first, let's sit with the idea of passion for a minute, Passion carries power. When work aligns with curiosity, maybe values or identity, it can create exceptional focus and kind of resilience. Okay, there's a way passion can make time move, Hours feel like just minutes, and that energy can fuel creative breakthroughs. Passion can also maybe change how maybe risk feels, If the work itself is rewarding, setbacks can feel like part of the process rather than just crashing through. Emotionally, passion can be an anchor for meaning, There is something about passion. Passion has its shadows. Motivation is not just a direct line to income. What feels thrilling at first can become just a grind, Pressure to monetize can turn joy into stress. And passion projects sometimes require a long period of low rewards before just a payoff appears. And not everyone has the margin to wait that long. So there's also the risk that identity becomes tied too tightly to work, So if the project struggles, it can feel like a personal failure rather than just a business reality. So now let's understand stability. Stability brings predictability, knowing when pay arrives and having benefits. Having a rhythm can as well reduce the daily anxiety, that steady base often makes it easier to plan other parts of life. For example, maybe housing, relationships, health, learning. Okay, there is a room for long-term thinking when basic needs are always met earlier. So, routine work environments can also provide structure that sometimes helps in skill development and professional credibility. So, stability, though sometimes can carry its own cost. The steady job can dull curiosity if it doesn't even connect with deeper values. And over time, that misalignments can lead to disengagements. And also it can as well slow dissatisfactions. The safety of stability can create a comfort zone that feels maybe increasingly narrow. So for some people, the fear of losing that predictability is so strong that it inhibits exploration of other interests. And that creates a kind of different stress, Okay, let me just highlight some important points here. Passion and stability are on a spectrum. And most real-world situations sit somewhere in between the two. So jobs can be more or less passionate and more or less stable at the same time. But people move along that spectrum through different seasons of life. The interesting conversations are about maybe trade-offs and not just obsoletes, Then there is a social pressure. Visibility changes how choices feel. When every success looks just like a headline and most failures get quieted, comparison becomes dangerous. Social media tends to present extremes, we have the glamorous wins, and also we have the tragic losses. That distortion can make middling, steady choices look boring and risky bets look just like inevitable success. That perception alone can push people into decisions that maybe don't fit their actual context. There is also identity. Work is just a major source of identity for many people, Okay, the idea of following passion connects to who someone feels they are, while choosing stability connects to the kind of life maybe they want to support. So that identification, maybe with a role, can make choices feel existential. And people sometimes read statuses into the decisions, Stability as settling and passion as ambition. So those labels can be misleading and emotionally they are loaded. Okay, a real tension is how passion interacts with talent and make it fit. Passion alone doesn't even predict market responses. So some passions have large audiences and clear income payways, Others have very small markets. There's a nuanced emotional angle here. It's possible to love something intensely and still face the reality that the world doesn't even reward it widely. That mismatch is just a common source of friction in career conversations. There is also a fairness angle here. Not everyone has the same room to take risks. Structural factors, for example, maybe family wealth, social capital, access to healthcare, and safety. These affects the cost of exploring passion, That inequality often gets overlooked in conversations that frame the dilemma as purely personal. The social context around a career choice matters so much. Okay, let's talk about shame and pride for a minute. Choice can bring pride when it aligns with identity or maybe responsibility, when it meets obligations. It can also bring shame when outcomes don't even match narratives or maybe when comparisons loom large. Those feelings are part of the emotional landscape and affect how decisions feel in real time. The challenge in the conversation is just to acknowledge shame without letting it dictate the narrative entirely. At the heart of this discussion is values alignment. What someone values, for example, maybe security, creativity, impact, comfort, freedom. These ones always shapes which path feels coherent, That's why a single answer doesn't even work for everyone. What's reasonable and maybe satisfying for one can feel uncomfortable or even acceptable for another person. The conversation becomes one of clarity about maybe values rather than just finding a universal rule. And finally, a truth about time. Preferences always change. People who want maybe exploration in their 30s or maybe in their 20s might want stability in their 40s. People who start with maybe stability might even rediscover a taste for maybe boldness later. Careers are rarely linear. The discussion here around maybe passion versus stability is therefore just a conversation about maybe seasons and movement, as much as it is about maybe single choices. So where does that leave this conversation? I mean, it leaves it messy, kind of honest, and maybe deeply personal. The career dilemma is just not about a puzzle with maybe one correct solution. It's a lived tension. The conversation is valuable not because of maybe it produces a single answer, but because it clarifies what matters. Surfaces, emotions, and highlights are always trade-offs. Okay, the tension between spark and steadiness is one of the most human parts of work life. And talking about it honestly is how people make sense of it. So, whatever shape their answers eventually takes, go for that. Otherwise, thanks so much for sitting with me throughout the talk until now. And until next time, always remember that at the end of the day, the passion versus stability question isn't even about being right or being wrong. It's about living tension that reflects your values, your timing, and the trade-offs you are willing to carry. Sometimes you'll crave the spark. Sometimes you'll crave the roof. And that push and pull is just part of a real conversation, honest life. Keep the conversation in your head open. Notice how your priorities shift. And remember that most people find their path in seasons, not just in a single dramatic leap. Spark or steady, pick your vibe, ride the wave, and make it fun. Otherwise, stay tuned to A Talk with Brian. Next time. Bye.